Peace and safety. Birth pangs increasing. My name is Daniel Vallis and welcome to our channel. Be sure to review our latest videos for the best understanding of what we're covering in this video. This picks up on what we've already been looking at, so you really have to watch our recent videos to get the fullest idea of everything coming together right now.
Today I'm announcing the United States is targeting the main artery of Russia's economy. We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy. That means Russian oil will no longer be acceptable at U.S. ports, and the American people will deal another powerful blow to Putin's war machine. And yesterday I spoke with my counterparts in France, Germany, and the United Kingdom about Russia's escalating violence against Ukraine and the steps that we're going to take, together with our allies and partners around the world, to respond to this aggression. We are enforcing the most significant package of economic sanctions in history, and it's causing significant damage to Russia's economy. We cut Russia's largest banks from the international financial system, and it has crippled their ability to do business with the rest of the world. In addition, we're choking off Russia's access to technology like semiconductors and sap its economic strength and weaken its military for years to come. Major companies are pulling out of Russia entirely without even being asked, not by us. Over the weekend, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, they all suspended their services in Russia, all of them, joining a growing list of American and global companies from Ford to Nike to Apple. They've suspended their operations in Russia. The U.S. Stock Exchange has halted trading of many Russian securities. And the private sector is united against Russia's vicious war of choice. And if we do not respond to Putin's assault on global peace and stability today, the cost of freedom and to the American people will be even greater tomorrow.
We are at a time of historic events in the world, historic sanctions, and also historic perilous times as well. We've heard so many calls of peace and safety that tells us sudden destruction is coming. We know so much about this time from a biblical perspective, and that is what has brought us here and guided us on this incredible learning journey. We are especially watching right now the time frame when Jupiter is in the river of water at Aquarius between February 20th and March 15th, especially when it's going to be directly in the stream, but really up through March 21st, approximately that area, when it reaches the farthest stars that are considered the water bubbles in that stream as well too. So we are at an incredible high watch, and we are not surprised at all of what is unfolding in the world right now. Very sober events, which also require very sober perspective. The celestial events themselves are very unique just in of themselves, and we've seen how the sun was in conjunction with Jupiter exactly at the water stream on March 5th, which it won't do for a very long time. This is a very unique time. But it's not just limited to a day of the 5th, because Jupiter is going to be hidden by the sun. It's going to be in the sun's corona, the glare of the sun, for 2 weeks before March 5th and about 2 weeks after March 5th too. So this whole time it's going to be in the sun's corona. It's going to be covered by the sun's corona. This whole time is a corona time. March 5th was just when they were the closest, but it's still going to be in that glare, in that corona of light around that sun for a number of days still. Jupiter will be closest to the sun's corona March 5th. The corona crown on top of Jupiter, the king planet, this coronation with the corona exactly at the living water stream, which is tied to the throne of God. But all during this time, again, while Jupiter is at the water stream, we can see it as a coronation time because Jupiter will be in the corona of the sun, which reminds us of the last page of the Bible here at this stream of living water. So we take what we see from a biblical perspective and prophecy and everything that the Lord has shown us on this celestial learning journey, just like the wise man that has brought us here. And then right here, we also have been observing that the Bible also tells us the enemy is going to be saying and doing certain things. And we see that right here at this exact coronation time as well. There's a lot that we see right now that shows forth the reality of what's on the last page of the Bible and in so many other promises from our Redeemer. So again, we are looking up through March 21st as the main window when it will definitely still be in the stream, but especially while we know it is within the stream is our best watch right now too. In our recent videos, we've looked at a lot of the Bible verses that emphasize this theme tied to the Alpha and Omega. And that also brings us to the first page of the Bible and the last page of the Bible, the first page of Revelation and the last page of Revelation as well. There's so much that has brought us here. Praise the Lord for everything that He has shown us. And one of the things that we've noticed on this learning journey is the calls of peace and safety, 1 Thessalonians 5. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. This code phrase of peace and safety will only be important prior to the tribulation, because when the second horse of Revelation comes, he takes peace from the earth and bringing sudden destruction, and it all goes downhill from there. And this is very important because of the warnings that Christ gave and the Apostle Paul gave as well. What is coming? Do we know what is coming? That sobers our perspective of where we are prophetically and how much time we have left and how we should be redeeming the time right now. What is coming and where are we? Do we know what prophetic time it is? And the more that the celestial and the prophetic and the geopolitical clock tells us you are about out of time, the more that sobers our living to be vigilant and to live in light of His return. We know what is coming. Not sudden prosperity, not sudden revival. Sudden destruction is what is coming. And unless we have a biblical perspective, holding fast to what God's Word says, we won't live in light that sudden destruction is coming. An event that Christ forewarns us, and the Apostle Paul warns us that destruction is coming, you will want to escape. And there are specific instructions because we know what is coming. If we don't have a biblical perspective and understanding and firm grasp on what is coming, then we won't follow the instructions either. We won't have an ear to hear. So it's very important that we always hold first and foremost, what does Scripture say? And do I have an ear to hear what it says? What is coming? Sudden destruction is coming. That's what the whole warning is centered about. When you hear them say this, sudden destruction is coming. And how is it coming? Upon them as travail upon a woman with child. Notice that is the description of how it is coming. The sudden destruction is an event of and of itself. But between the calls of peace and safety, there is going to be a ramp-up period, a crowning moment when the baby's head comes forth, so to speak, a crowning, a corona time that will bring the sudden destruction. The sudden destruction is the World War III event that's coming, basically, the red horse of Revelation. But separately and right before that, there is going to be a ramp-up prior to World War III. And that is where we are right now. We are seeing a sudden ramp up in the world's geopolitical system that we know things are about to hit the fan. And even secular observers are noticing this too. Things are about to hit the fan. A sudden destruction is coming, and it's going to be a very bad sudden destruction too. And so in our recent videos, we covered how they have definitely said peace and safety at very high levels in the UN Security Council, even the UN General Assembly as well. And now we can definitely see that we are in the travailing pangs right now, which means a baby is about to pop out. We are on very borrowed time here. And it goes with Christ's warnings that, for as a snare shall come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. This is not a regional event that's coming. Jesus Christ told us something is coming that's going to affect everybody on the whole world. It doesn't matter if you're in the North Pole or all the way off in Antarctica. You will be affected by what's coming, because the world's going to be inundated with what is coming. Watch ye therefore, and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Jesus Christ gave instructions here for what we are to do to be counted worthy, which means He's telling us it's on our end. It's something He wants us to do. And when Christ tells us He wants us to do something, it's not talking about something that He has done. He's talking about something He wants us to do. So don't confuse this with other verses that talk about other subjects. The rapture doesn't save anybody. It doesn't unsave anybody either. This isn't a salvation subject. He's saying, watch ye therefore and pray always that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things. Things that are happening here on the face of the whole earth. He's not talking about heaven or hell. He's talking about things right here on the earth. Things that are coming. He's not talking about things that are already here, like persecution and bad times. He's talking about the tribulation events that are coming that have not come since the foundation of the world. You will want to escape them. And He told us, He instructed us, He commanded us. This is what you need to do to escape, because He wants us to escape. But there are things that we have to do. And when the Apostle Paul warns us about this, when you hear them say this, sudden destruction is coming. That sudden destruction, that snare that is coming upon the whole world, that's going to come suddenly. It's going to snap suddenly, just like a snare, just like a trap. There is going to be a quick ramp up right before that. You'll know it's about to spring, but when it comes, it's going to be suddenly. Just like how Noah's flood came, and just like how the destruction on Sodom and Gomorrah came. It came suddenly. And that is what we are foretold is coming. A sudden destruction, a sudden trap is coming. And the way that it is coming, before it arrives, it's going to be coming as travail upon a woman with child. You're going to see a ramp up in contractions and pain, suddenly increasing all of a sudden. It tells you the baby is about here. The baby is almost here. And that's where we are right now. You just have to watch the news and shake your head and realize things are heading for a cliff really quickly. We are in the birth pangs and they are increasing. Every day now it's increasing. And as we view the news, we should look at it from a biblical perspective, and that should sober us that we are running out of time. The world is running out of time. Peace and safety. It can also be said as peace and security. It's the same thing. Peace and certainty even. Peace and secureness. That's the same thing. And this is what we've heard over the past few days, even in the UN General Assembly and the Security Council, even hearing them use those two interchangeable terms, safety and security, even stability. We heard the Chinese ambassador refer to it in that sense. It's all the same thing. This is the code phrase that the Bible warns us. When you hear them say this, sudden destruction is coming, and you're going to see a ramp up, just like a travailing woman in child pangs. You're going to see that right before the baby comes, right before that crowning. And this is what we have seen, particularly very suspiciously, that the enemy knows that this is the time for the sun destruction to come. And right during this time, while the sun, the corona, is at Aquarius, this water stream, we've seen these events in Ukraine kick off with the national flower of Ukraine, is well known as the sunflower because of the major sunflower oil exports. And even their flag is known as a blue sky over a yellow wheat field or a sunflower field. More so a sunflower field because that is even more yellow than a wheat field. So we are not surprised what we see on the celestial clock lining up with the geopolitical clock, because the children of darkness are fully aware of what prophetic time it is too. Revelation 17:12, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. Everything that you see on the news right now, everything is scripted. It's scripted. The Bible even tells us it's scripted. A worldwide deception will require a coordinated betrayal. A great deception is coming on the world. A sudden destruction is also coming on the entire world. Guess who's doing that? It's the children of darkness. The Apostle Paul even warned us that the enemy is waiting to be unrestrained. The first events of the tribulation are not supernatural. They're natural. They're man-made. You read the first 5 seals of the tribulation. They are man-made events. They are not supernatural. God is just unrestraining and allowing the children of darkness to do what they've been wanting to do for a very long time. They are man-made events. They have a plan. They have a script. They have an agenda of what they're going to do. And their order out of chaos is so that they can hand over their power and strength unto the beast. But they need to have a plausible excuse so the average citizenry and population goes along with it and thinks that, oh, this wasn't planned, we weren't betrayed, when in reality they were betrayed. Everything you see on the news right now, everything is scripted. All the excuses, all the backstory, it's all scripted. The Americans, the NATO, Russia, they're all working on one mind. They just got to make it plausible, which is what they're doing, because they fully intend and fully know what they're doing. They intend to give their power and strength into the beast that is coming out of the bottomless pit. They know exactly what they're doing. And this sobers our perspective when we watch the news. Don't fall for the sob stories that they give out on the news and try to steer your emotions or whatnot. No. We already know who's behind all this and who's orchestrating it. Everything we see on the news right now, they're puppets. They're just grabbing them by the cuff of their neck and holding them up in front of the screen so they can make their little pious little sob story speeches, and then they throw them back in the corner. It's all scripted right now. They are already on the same page. They already know what page they're on. And this is one thing that should sober us and keep us focused on what is a biblical perspective. Let's look at everything going on right now through a biblical lens. John 7:24, judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Don't go by what you see on the news, what you hear the presidents talk about. No. Don't judge by appearance. You can easily be led astray by that. Throw in their social media as well, on the internet as well. Judge not according to the appearance. They're going to pander on your emotions. Just take that for granted right now. They're going to play you like a cheap violin. Especially when the Bible tells us they are of the same mind. They're working together for the same agenda to give their power to the Antichrist, the son of perdition, which tells you a lot about the people who are working these things. They are the children of darkness. They have no intention of telling you the truth. None. So when we know that, we judge righteous judgment by keeping that forefront, and that is the filter by where we filter everything that is shown to the appearance. We realize it's all false lies that we're being told on the news right now. This is not Putin's war. He's not some madman. No. They're all mad. They're all mad. They all intend to give their power to the Antichrist, the son of perdition. That is the height of foolishness and folly, which means they're already deceived. They have no love of truth already. They're already given over to the deception that somehow they're going to win. They already have a deranged mind, which means they have no trouble lying to you. This is what we need to keep in mind. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. What does the Bible tell us about these last days when we hear these code words? Who's behind it? The children of darkness. 1 Thessalonians 5 even tells us that. Which means they're not going to tell you the truth. And their motives are the direct opposite of what they tell you. They're not working out of pure hearts at all. They don't care one whit about Ukrainians or the civilians or kindergartners and hospitals and all the other sob stories they put on the news. They don't care. They care about giving power to the Antichrist, son of perdition, who's coming out of the bottomless pit. And that's what they're doing right now. That's what they're working on. And that's what we need to keep forefront. Turn off TV, turn off CNN, turn off Fox News, turn off the garbage, turn off the sewer pit. Have a righteous judgment, biblical perspective of what's going on right now. What we see in the world right now are things escalating. We are watching the birth pangs unfold. When we see the news headlines, they are increasing every single day. They're escalating. Even the world leaders are talking about how things are spinning out of control. What is that? That's another word for things are rapidly ramping up beyond what we can supposedly handle and address. Prevailing pangs, overwhelming pangs, because something is crowning that is about to be born right now. And this is the perspective we need to have on all these events. Things aren't going to get better. They're not going to settle down. It's just like dominoes. Once they're set in motion, it's already in motion. And that's what 1 Thessalonians 5 warns. When you hear them say this, it's already on the way. Sudden destruction is on the way. It's not just going to park for a while and be delayed for a while. No, it's already coming. And particularly when you see the travailing pangs, you know the baby's about to pop out. And that's the perspective we need to have when we look at the news. We are watching the birth pangs right now. We are expecting Christ to come before the baby fully pops out. For the agenda of the children of darkness is fully unrestrained, because the escape is from the snare of all that is coming, from the sudden destruction that is coming. But we are told there will be a ramp up. You will see that ramp up that tells you it's right at the door. The baby is about to pop out. He's crowning right now. That's where we are right now. That's where we are right now. In our community tab on our YouTube channel, we've even posted different things to make you realize these events are escalating. They have a already predetermined end. You ask Japan what happens when strangling sanctions are imposed on an armed country. Like 1938, a sanction on war implements. 1940, a sanction on airplanes, parts, machine tools, avgas. July 1941 on oil for Japan. What happened in 1941? December 7th, Pearl Harbor. When you sanction an armed country, there is only one major result. They have to hit back hard at those who are strangling them, because you have to knock their hand off your throat. And good thing Japan didn't have nukes, right? Well, wait a minute. Why are we putting sanctions? Why are we putting strangling sanctions on a country that we know has nukes? Because they know what the outcome's going to be. They're going to have to smack that hand off that's on their throat. The sanctions that you see our world leaders doing now, they are doing it on purpose. And from a biblical Christian perspective, we can see when they put these strangling sanctions that are on a historic level, never done before to this level, on an armed country of all things, we already know what the conclusion is. They know what the conclusion is. It's a ramp up. The travailing birth pangs that are leading to a very obvious conclusion that will not go away. It's a result that has to be done. And particularly when we see the historic sanctions going to an obscene level, completely divorced from reality. We're seeing, like America and NATO countries, we're seeing them actually hurt and destroy themselves, destroy their full faith and credit in their own currency and systems by these sanctions. It does not make rational sense when you look at what's going on in the world right now. Why are so many countries actually hurting themselves? Sanctions only work if the party that you're sanctioning will actually be hurt more by the sanctions than you are. But if you're going to be hurt more by the sanctions than they are, then you have to ask yourselves who's really being targeted by these sanctions. It's not Russia. It's not Russia. It's America and NATO countries. If you want to destroy your full faith and credit in your country and your system, your services, your currency, your banking system, all you have to do is weaponize SWIFT against the banking users. Take and steal foreigners' central bank deposits against them. Use Visa and MasterCard systems and other payment processing systems to blanket deny access to people, blanket shutdown of Western technology services, seize foreigners' bank accounts and property for any reason. Eliminate all trust in Western banking currency. And that's what we're seeing, a sudden ramp up over just a few days. All of a sudden, America and NATO countries are destroying full faith and credit in their services, currency, and system. You're giving the entire world a whole reason not to use your banking system or your currency because it becomes a liability. Why would we want to use that? The sanctions that we're seeing, it's self-destructive. It goes beyond sense because the end result that they're pushing for now is not a rational diplomatic approach. They are pushing for a destruction of the party that's actually pushing on Russia. What we're seeing on the world stage right now is not a diplomatic solution or diplomatic problems even. We're seeing world leaders who really know what prophetic time it is, who know what time celestially it is too, who know that sun destruction is about to come because it's on their agenda and they're going to be the ones planning it. They know how late the hour is. They know it's about time for the baby to pop out. So what are they doing? They're throwing gasoline on the fire. They're actually accelerating the birth pangs at this moment because they know the Son of Man is about to appear at any moment. He's about to evacuate his ambassadors of Christ, and then there's going to be a great unrestraining of everything that they've been wanting to do. And the son of perdition is going to come onto the scene, and they're going to hand over their power to him. So what we're seeing right now is an insane throwing of gasoline on a fire and actually calling for napalm. It's so ridiculous how self-destructive what we're seeing in the news is right now. It's obvious that they're not working in the best interest of the countries that they supposedly represent. They're hell-bent, literally, on one conclusion. Push this to a snapping breaking point to where Russia has to lash out. It doesn't matter if Russia could call a ceasefire, they could withdraw even today, and yet all these systems are already broken. It's beyond repair at this point. It's irreversible, this sun destruction that's coming, because they're already throwing fuel on the fire to accelerate it. We're at a point of no return. We passed that several days ago. The baby is already crowning right now. Sudden destruction is not that far away. And this is what we need to keep in mind when we look at the timeline. You can find links in the description box. I wish these worked really well on phones, but unfortunately they don't, and these are large documents. So that we're going to go over some of it today here. But these documents are best pulled up on a desktop system just because there's so much information. We have two timelines. We have a wide view timeline which goes all the way back to November with the blood moon and the sun turned to darkness. That warning from Joel that warns us that a great and terrible day is coming. We saw that just a few months and weeks before the suddenly ramp up. We were given a warning and we knew at that time it's just around the corner what this is warning us about. And of course, we also noticed with the peace and safety calls, a 2-year anniversary of what we had seen prior to that, and also the end of the 7-year warning. That also brought us right to a time period when they were making even higher levels calls of peace and safety, and that's when the birth pangs really started accelerating. And all the events that we've seen with Russia and Ukraine and this sunflower event that is suddenly plastered across the news and social media, that all started right around that time. Exactly at the time that the 7-year warning ended. Because the enemy knows what time it is. They know when the baby's about to pop out. And that also brings us to the celestial time where the sun has been at Aquarius, lining up exactly with Jupiter as well. And it was right during this corona time that Russia announced its military operation in Ukraine. The country of sunflowers. It's even on their flag because they know what time it is. All this is happening within a corona on the celestial clock right at Aquarius, the water bearer. They know what time it is, because all this is on the last page of the Bible, with the repeated warnings, "Behold, I come quickly." We are told to look up, for our redemption draweth nigh. And that is the promise that is on the last page of the Bible. So again, definitely review the timeline if you have the ability to. We also have a cropped version of the timeline, so you don't have to download the larger file. It just shows pretty much where we are right now since the beginning of the operation, and the celestial events as well. Let's zoom in a little bit. Again, take notice what we're seeing in Russia and NATO and America, all that acceleration. It's all taking place within the window while the sun is at Aquarius, right during the same time while Jupiter is at that water stream as well. So all during this high watch time, up through March 21st, that is this corona time. And the enemy knows that. It was all centered on March 5th, but the time 2 weeks before that and 2 weeks after that, that whole time window is the corona time. We could see it, and it appears to be the coronation time, corona, the applying of the crown time too. Again, that reminds us what is the first seal of Revelation. The white horse is coming, and he is given a crown. And that is what we are seeing right now with these birth pangs. They have one mind to give their power and authority, their crown, to the one who is coming from the bottomless pit, the beast, the son of perdition. And that's what we're seeing coming together here. The enemy about to hand over a crown. We're at a crowning time, but it also means sudden destruction is coming too. The second horse, third horse, and the fourth horse as well. And there are going to be massive, massive casualties. When we zoom in, let's just look at some of the events that have unfolded since our last peace and safety video. March 1st was where we left off with Biden had his State of the Union address where he mentioned peace and security. That is the cry here at this very late hour. Almost every single day that I've been watching the news, in some of the major media venues, I've heard them say peace and security, or peace and stability, or peace and safety. One of those variations almost every single day now. Very high levels. The UN has been having frequent meetings as well where they keep saying that because these birth pangs are increasing. But also on March 1st was when Russia told the French finance minister to watch his words after the French finance minister vowed to wage economic and financial war on Russia. Again, that is what is seen here. Russia sees all these sanctions that are done against them as a declaration of war. We are already at a state of technical war with Russia. It hasn't gone hot yet, but it is about to. And that's the difference between the travail and ramp up. Words are exchanged and actions are done, but he hasn't smacked back yet. That's going to be the sudden destruction. And once that happens, it's all going to hit the fan from there. So we're at the travailing birth pangs of the sudden destruction, but the sudden destruction itself is about to come, and that will be the World War III. And we already see the words exchanged right now at very high diplomatic levels that what you're talking about is tantamount to war. You are admitting that this is a war against us. And of course, words quickly turn to blows. March 2nd, Brussels bans Euro notes deliveries to Russia. The EU cuts off 7 major Russian banks from SWIFT. That's when they started it and announced it. It's had a little progress. Apparently by March 12th, that's going to be fully in effect. But that's major, even though it's with just a limited number of banks. Cutting off from your system. And again, demonstrating bad faith. Why should they use our systems going forward from here? But also interestingly, Taiwan suffered widespread power outages. And a lot of people are speculating that China is about to make a move on Taiwan too. So it's very suspicious that all of a sudden Taiwan started suffering widespread power outages. Like someone was playing with their power and sending them a message to them at the same time. There was a growing push to end Moscow's status as permanent Security Council member. And as of Wednesday, 6 carriers controlling 62% of global capacity temporarily suspended Russian booking. Cargo carriers. They announced, hey, we're not going to be carrying new supplies to and from Russia. And that is very big because the carriers themselves are going to start backing off from anything related to Russian cargo. And then even customers and companies that they deal with aren't going to want to touch anything related to Russian commerce either because of the sanctions. They don't want to be affected either. So even though there's a certain number of companies that say, oh, we're going to hold off on new contracts or we're only going to ban non-essential cargo, we'll still do medicine and food and stuff like that. All the companies who are hiring those cargo companies are going to say, no, we're not going to do any of that stuff because we don't want to risk any sanctions on us. So that's what you got to see when you look at the news. All these sanctions that service providers announce on Russia. Think of all their customers and all the factories and companies that deal with them who are now even going to do further widespread backing off because they don't want to even be remotely associated with touching Russia. The sanctions that we're seeing on Russia are far wider than what even the news is telling you because of the ripple effect. People back off because they lose faith in the systems that they're working with. March 3rd, Lavrov says the West needs the topic of nuclear war or World War III to support Russophobia. Russia knows it's America and NATO that's fomenting this World War III hysteria. It's not Russia, it's US and NATO. Also on the 3rd, Russia's Yamal Europe gas pipeline stops supplies in line with customers' bid requests. They didn't have companies bidding on gas, so they stopped the gas, which is normal. But again, it also starts to show people are backing away from buying Russian gas on the 3rd. But Russian intelligence chief says Intel showed Ukraine was working on nukes and the US knew about it. This was a very big revelation on the 3rd. That was when there was also the fighting near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest one in Europe. And you heard a lot of hysteria on the news and social media about that. People just running around with their hair on fire, basically. But I was watching on YouTube. You could watch the live cams at the nuclear power plant, and I was during the fighting. And it was nothing like what they were blowing out of proportion on the news, and they're still repeating on the news today. Even at that time, I knew, and other people who were watching at that time, this is being blown out of proportion on purpose. On purpose. So that's what we've seen. That's what we talked about in our last videos. You should expect a ramp up of these nuclear fears, and that has been what we've been seeing. Even though it's been disconnected from reality, they're still hyping it up because that is the end result that they're pushing for. I also want to mention on March 3rd we've been looking at the Pilgrim's Parallel with the 400-year prophecy. On March 3rd was the last mention in the captain's log, the Mayflower log, of the Pilgrims unloading something major from the ship. So this is interesting just to look at this comparison. Somewhere in this neighborhood, 400 years ago, the Pilgrims were finishing unloading and moving into the land. And so again, that brings us to mind the 400-year anniversary where we are right now. The parallel prophecy with Abraham's seed. Christ foretold that a nation would one day come that would bring forth fruit for God. And we can see that same application with the expectation that after 400 years, the nation where they are strangers in will be judged. And that is very sobering to see these parallels right now. And at this exact same time where the Pilgrims historically 400 years ago were finishing unloading the moving trucks, so to speak. All these parallels are not by accident at all. March 4th, Russia blocks Facebook and Twitter. No loss on their end, although it has made it a little harder for social journalists and just the average person on the ground to put out things, which, of course, there's also a lot of disinformation in that too, but it does prevent certain things. But you're seeing a disconnect from the East and the West. Aeroflot has been removed from the Sabre Global electronic ticket booking system. The Russian airlines only going to be able to do flights within their system and country right now, really. Russia has recommended fertilizer exports to halt exports. And this is major. This is major. And again, it goes back to sanctions only work if they're going to hurt the person you're sanctioning more than you. But the sanctions actually hurt those who are putting in the sanctions. And Russia says, fine, if you're going to sanction us, you're not going to enjoy our fertilizer, which a lot of countries depend on Russian fertilizer to keep up their crop outputs. You can still have outputs without the fertilizer, but nowhere near what you would with the fertilizer. So you're starting to see them push back on all these sanctions, which actually hurts us more than them. Russian forces 20 miles and closing from Ukraine's second largest nuclear plant on March 4th. So expect these also to come back in the news because Ukraine has several nuclear power plants and some pretty big ones too. March 5th, PayPal, Visa, MasterCard shut down operations in Russia. And this deals with cards issued in Russia but used outside of Russia. But still, it destroys faith in the system. Why would we want to use our system if you're going to use it against us? China has a Taiwan warning again against separatist inclinations and foreign meddling. So that's on the second front burner going on at this time too. There's a lot that tells us when things hit the fan, it's going to be in multiple places at once. Putin announces that anti-Russia sanctions are akin to declaration of war. This is when he made it very clear. you are making a declaration of war against my country by these sanctions. And what he's doing is drawing a line in the sand. And you can tell he's not bluffing when he's saying, if you keep this up, something's going to happen. Because that was also when Putin remarked on a no-fly zone possibility, he would consider its introduction in Ukraine by any country as participation in an armed conflict. And he bluntly warned there will be catastrophic consequences not just for Europe, but for the entire world if you mess with our situation here. And so we're seeing a ramp up very publicly by those who are behind the scenes orchestrating the script so that the world already knows if party 1 does this to party 2, then things are going to really hit the fan. And this is being broadcast in the news, so the average person already has this expectation that if lines are crossed, it's going to get ugly really quickly, very suddenly. And even on mainstream media such as CNN, they're repeating his warnings so that everybody knows it. Because they're priming the pump. And they're making sure the average person knows what the expected end is. March 6th, Russian Yamal-Europe pipeline halts all westbound gas supplies. Russian banks switching to Chinese Union Pay. Okay, PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, you don't want to play along? We'll switch to Chinese Union Pay. No problem. Moody's downgrades Russia's credit rating to pre-default. Russia publishes documents which show Ukraine was working on biological weapons near the Russian borders in U.S.-funded labs. This was a very big announcement on March 6th and is still being talked about. They're basically pointing out the U.S. has been up to some very bad business here in Ukraine, and that's what they're exposing, particularly the Nazi groups that the U.S. has been funding since 2014, which is common knowledge. But they're laying all this out to show that there's more than one side of the story, but then also showing there's a reason why we're hitting hard, and there's also a reason why we don't want the party who's responsible for what's going on here in Ukraine, we don't want them interfering, and we will smack back at them if they do get involved. So you're seeing very strong lines and very strong reasons given right now where if lines are crossed, it's going to get hot and very hot immediately, suddenly. There isn't really going to be any further ramp up. We're seeing a buildup of these tensions by these warnings. Russia warned Ukraine's neighbors, also including NATO members Romania, against hosting Kiev's aircraft. They could end up being involved in an armed conflict, they warned. And so this is very important as we see talk of Poland donating planes. Russia's already given out the warning. Hey, all you neighboring countries, if you get involved in this, we will consider that as you are getting involved in an armed conflict, which makes you a combatant. They've already put that warning out. They've already drawn that line in the sand. That was on the 6th. 7th, Russia approves a list of unfriendly countries. They've been acting in an unfriendly way with all these sanctions, so now we're going to start treating them unfriendly. This is the exact same route that Japan followed prior to Pearl Harbor. You make a list of those who act unfriendly towards you, and you eventually have to smack that hand off your neck. Shell limits some heating oil sales in Germany as shortages develop. Several French factories, including Michelin, have shut their doors due to lack of supply of certain raw materials amid the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Historic gas prices in Europe exceed $3,000 per 1,000 cubic meters. Chance of Russian energy ban ignites mayhem. So now we're, again, seeing a larger ripple effect because people know once you put in sanctions, there are going to be counter-sanctions, and we will lose more than they lose by these sanctions. So that's why you're seeing the prices of energy suddenly skyrocket even on the rumors, because they already know the costs will cost us more than it costs Russia. The U.S. Congress House to hold a minute vote on ditching trade relations with Russia and Belarus, including oil imports, March 7th. And you've certainly seen over the past few days gasoline prices ramp up rapidly because, again, the contagion effect of sanctions, the companies involved, there's far more reaching events behind the scenes than just dealing with singular barrels of oil coming from certain places. And also the oil coming from Russia, it's sweet crude, which is good for gasoline. It's not heavy crude. Not all oil is the same. And so when they say, oh, we only get a certain percent from Russia, yeah, what's the percent, though, of that sweet crude, of all the sweet crude that we need? It's larger than the percent that is in the larger oil picture. We're more dependent on Russian oil for gasoline than they're telling you straight up, because they're telling you a whole picture, not just singular, of sweet crude. It's going to hurt far more than they're telling you straight up front. And then today, on March 8th, the U.S. gasoline prices hit record high of average of $4.17. The European nat gas prices soar after Russia threatens to halt Nord Stream 1, which is the main natural gas supplier for Europe. And that's always running at 100%, but Russia puts out the warning, hey, we can shut this off any day now. Do you want us to? We can. And that would be catastrophic. Shell announces they will stop all spot purchases of Russian oil, shut all gas stations in the country. Biden bans Russian oil, liquefied natural gas, and coal imports. So a wide gamut of industry products. And he'll go on the news and he'll say, oh, but we have 9,000 leases made for U.S. companies. They can come along and we can get back on track, no problem. No, the oil companies here in the U.S. will tell you those are 9,000 leases, but there's no guarantee. We haven't even explored whether there's actually oil or gas on those properties. And it's a very costly development to develop each one of those properties to even find out if there is oil there. And so you got to keep all that in mind. Biden is not being upfront with you how much this is costing America or what is really at stake. These are sanctions that will hurt us far more than they're letting on. And also today, China demands answers from the U.S. over Russian reveals about military biolabs in Ukraine. And this is something you have to keep in mind, which you're not told on Western media, such as CNN or Fox. China is walking sidestep with Russia on all these things. China knows exactly what's going on in Ukraine with Russia denazifying the leadership there in Ukraine. And even China in their mainstream papers even uses that exact term because they know that's what's being done. There are Nazis in power in Ukraine. Even China knows that. Who funds them? U.S. did. Remember U.S. Senator McCain when he went over there and took pictures being seen with the Nazis there in Ukraine? That was a big kerfuffle then. And that got swept under the rug because that wasn't convenient because the U.S. was funding them. China has known this all along. And again, President Zelensky, he is not the one in charge. The Azov Battalion, the Right Sector, those neo-Nazi groups, those are the ones who really hold the power. They just grab President Zelensky by the scruff of his neck, hold him in front of the camera so he does his little sob stories, and then put him back in the corner. He has no control in Ukraine. He's just a public figurehead that looks pretty. The neo-Nazis are the ones who have the actual power and control the battalions, especially the ones that are holding out the hardest in Ukraine right now. Russia knows that. China knows that. And China also knows that, yes, the U.S. had biolabs there in Ukraine. And even now they are putting on pressure. Hey, we want some accountability for this, U.S., because we know what you have been up to. This is not Putin's war. It's America's war. It's America's war. Both Russia and China know that full well. And then today, just while I was getting ready for this video, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Poland, they announced that they are going to supply planes. The authorities of the Republic of Poland, after consultations between the president and the government, are ready to deploy immediately and free of charge all their MiG-29 jets to the Ramstein Air Base in Germany and place them at the disposal of the government of the United States of America. At the same time, Poland requests the United States to provide us with used aircraft with corresponding operational capabilities. Poland is ready to immediately establish the conditions of purchase of the planes. The Polish government also requests other NATO allies, owners of MiG-29 jets, to act in the same vein. Poland was asked to donate their planes to Ukraine to help them with the effort because they have MiG-29 planes that the Ukrainian pilots are already familiar and trained on. So that's why they have to give them their planes and not American planes. But Russia has already made it very clear, hey, all you neighbors, if you donate and help them out, we will consider that you actively getting involved in this armed conflict, which means you become an armed combatant and we will strike back at you. Poland has all this pressure by the American bullies to donate their planes. And so as a cop-out, they're saying, well, we're going to give our planes to the U.S. Yes, we're going to give our planes to the U.S. and then they can do with them whatever they want, knowing full well that they're going to hand them over to Ukraine. But they're trying to wash their hands of this whole business. But just today they announced that, yes, we will be giving our planes and they're going to go to a proxy. So you can see just from today, there's going to be a major escalation very soon because right now, today, red lines are being crossed. Red lines are being crossed. We're very short on time. We are seeing a ramp up, a travailing of these birth pangs. It's irreversible at this point. It's irreversible. It has already a stated conclusion. The enemy, the children of darkness, already know what the conclusion is. That's why they're pushing so hard and so crazily, hysterically toward certain actions because they know what the result is going to be. And it's all happening during this corona time while Jupiter is hidden in the sun's glare, in the sun's corona at Aquarius, right at the water stream. Again, we are told we will hear them say peace and safety. That means sun destruction is coming, and it's coming as travail upon a woman and child. It's just like dominoes. Once you set them in motion, it's going to go until it's completely done. Once you hear them say peace and safety, sun destruction is already on the way. Forget about your long-term plans. It's already on the way. And we can see with the ramp up in the news that it's not that far away at all. Not that far away at all. We are running on very borrowed time. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch ye, therefore, and pray always that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Christ implores us, watch. Watch yourself. Take heed to yourselves. Don't get caught up in the cares of this life. That's even mentioned right in the verse before that. Don't get caught up on your long-term plans, your career, investments, and all your other plans that you have right now, the cares of this life. No. Once you see that time is short, you should be living accordingly and watch yourself. Make sure you're not caught up in it. Make sure you're not punch drunk on everything else that the world is chasing after right now. Watch yourself. Be sober. And that's what Paul emphasizes in 1 Thessalonians 5, a few verses later. Watch and be sober. You will have to be sober when you hear these warnings because of what is coming. There's going to be a lot that you're going to have to cut off out of your life when you reach this time in prophetic history, because there's going to be a lot of distractions. There's going to be a lot of weights that will pull you back from having a focused, sober view of prophetic time and what is coming. Watch ye therefore, and pray always. Watch your prayer life. Watch your fellowship with Christ. If we regard iniquity in our heart, the Lord will not hear us. And that's part of watching. We got to watch ourselves, watch what's going on in the news, but more so watch our heart. Watch our life. Watch our fellowship with the Lord and pray always. Keep your prayer life where it needs to be, where you are supping with the Lord daily, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass. We see these things coming to pass because we are already in the birth pangs, in the travailing, during the crowning of the birthing time. What is about to come? The baby is about to pop out. We are running on very borrowed time. We can look at the last page of the Bible and see so many beautiful pictures that are declared on the celestial clock that reminds us of the time of the promises of our Redeemer, who told us, look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. And that is what we see declared so beautifully along the line in the heavens on the celestial clock. The very picture of our Redeemer giving forth the living water. Right, beautifully said in the same promises, behold, I come quickly. And when we look up and we see the visual portrayals, the reminders of these promises of the river of life, the living water, we are also reminded of the promises in which those promises are set. Behold, I come quickly. Our Redeemer, the one who paid our bride price, is coming to pick up his purchased possession. And that is what is so beautifully evident and so tangibly real in what we see unfolding even now. It's a sober time, but it is also a time of promise. We are reminded of the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. And as we see so many reminders that time is short, as we hear the warnings that tell us what is coming, that should sober us, that yes, there are instructions given for this time. We do need to watch ourselves. We do need to take heed to ourselves. We do need to draw nigh to him with a true heart. We do need to purify and sanctify ourselves even as he is pure. 1 John 3:3. There are things that we are told to do that we know we should do. Let's not push them off or try to excuse them. No, let's apply ourselves to being found wise and faithful servants, girded in his service with our lights burning, drawing nigh to him with a true heart, a genuine heart in service, love, and holding fast to his words. Being found ready, being found running for the prize, being found going out to meet the bridegroom, hearing him, heeding him, loving him, and serving him first and highest above all else, holding fast to his words till he comes. Maranatha!